Some draws feel like a punch in the gut. Some feel like a lucky escape. And some are the kind you only appreciate when you look at the table and realize you're still in front. This one at the Gtech Community Stadium, a 1-1 against Brentford, landed somewhere in between all of that. Coming into it, the mood was already edgy. We'd won 4 on the bounce, we're leading the league, and then Manchester City trimmed the gap the night before. Add the fact that Brentford at home is basically a footballing stress test, and you knew this wasn't going to be pretty. It was always going to be scrappy, tense, and full of those moments where you're just begging for the final whistle. And that's exactly what it turned into. The first half, honestly, felt like 2 teams canceling each other out rather than 2 teams creating anything. Not a chess match, more like an arm wrestle where neither side could find leverage. You could feel the anxiety in the stadium, and let's be real, through the screen too. Brentford have barely lost there all season, and we look like a team that understood that and played accordingly. Safe, cautious, maybe a bit too cautious. Our best moment before the break was basically an accident. A corner, a scramble, and Gabriel almost bundling something goalward in a way that said, well, I guess that counts as danger. That's the level we were at. The one real heart-stopper came from David Raya, who misjudged a rollout and nearly gifted Brentford a goal. He did at least make up for it immediately with a sharp save, but summed up the half, messy, nervy, low on quality, and high on tension. By halftime, it was one of those matches where you're thinking, how on earth are we going to turn this into a win? There just wasn't enough control or invention. The place wasn't roaring. It was simmering, waiting for a mistake or a moment. And then, in the second half, the manager made the first real move to change the feel of it. Martin Ødegaard comes on, and suddenly the game makes a bit more sense. Not instantly beautiful, but you could see the idea. More composure, more structure, more of that calm that makes everyone else around him breathe normally again. Just after the hour mark, we finally got the kind of action you expect from a side trying to win a title. The ball gets recycled after a half clear. Piero Hincapie shapes himself and whips in a wicked, curling cross, the kind that defenders hate because it's arriving with pace and uncertainty. And there's Noni Madueke hanging in the air long enough to make it look effortless, guiding a header into the far corner. It was clinical, it was efficient, it was, frankly, ruthless. His 15th Premier League goal, and it was our first shot on target. That's how tight the game had been. One proper moment, one proper finish. And suddenly you're thinking, right, champions find a way. But here's the part everyone who's ever gone to Brentford knows. You don't just turn up, score, and float away peacefully. Brentford have their own laws of physics, and one of them is the long throw. It's as inevitable as paying for parking. You might not like it, you might complain about it, but it will happen. Sure enough, a long throw gets launched into the box like it's being fired from a catapult. There's a flick on, bodies everywhere, and keen Lewis Potter attacks the moment with total commitment. Before you can really reset your brain, it's 1-1. The annoying thing is, it didn't feel like some unbelievable, unstoppable piece of genius. It felt like the exact thing you warned about beforehand, and then still allow anyway. Brentford have scored multiple times from throw-in situations this season, and across the league there have been more goals from throw-ins than we've seen in years. It's like the sport has decided to revisit a past era, just with better camera angles. Once it was level, the game finally opened up. The tightness loosened just enough for chaos to creep in. Brentford had moments where you thought, this could go wrong quickly. Thiago Silva nearly made us pay. Christian Mosquera had to produce a huge recovery tackle, the kind that doesn't always get the headlines but can save you points. And then in stoppage time, Silva has a chance that looked dangerous and sends it into the stands. Sometimes football is just like that, and we weren't done either. We had our own late moment, the sort of chance that plays in your head on the drive home. Gyökeres slips the ball through. Timber gets into a great spot and squares across. And suddenly Gabriel Martinelli is in one-on-one. Exactly the situation you want in the closing stages. For a split second, it felt like the script was being written. Smash and grab winner, top of the league mentality, all that. But Caoimhin Kelleher gets an arm to it and somehow keeps it out. That's the moment where you can almost hear an entire fan base inhale at once, and then exhale in frustration. So, what do we do with this result? Because it's easy to focus on the irritation. We conceded from a long throw. We didn't really get going until later than you'd like. We had a massive chance at the death and didn't take it. All of that is true, but take a breath and zoom out. We've scored first 17 times this season, and only twice we failed to turn that into a win. That's not wobble material. That's evidence of a team that usually knows how to close games. On top of that, Brentford barely lose at home. This is a hard away ground behaving exactly like a hard away ground. And the table still matters more than the vibe in the moment. We're 4 points clear. City tried to apply pressure the night before, and we didn't crumble. We added to the total. Title races aren't won by looking good every week. They're won by collecting points across the messy afternoons, as well as the glorious ones. This was an accumulation day. Yes, we have to defend those throw-in situations better. That's not optional, because teams will keep testing it. Yes, Martinelli probably scores that most of the time. And yes, it would be nice if we didn't have to wait until the 61st minute to register a shot on target. But it wasn't a collapse, and it wasn't panic stations. It was a tough match in a hostile place. And we came out with something when plenty of teams come out with nothing. Now the focus shifts to what's next. There's rotation to manage and momentum to protect. We got the FA Cup match against Wigan Athletic at the Emirates, then a league trip to Wolverhampton Wanderers, and then the big one on the horizon, Tottenham away, the second North London derby of the season. That's where the air starts to feel a bit thinner, and February starts asking real questions. 4 points clear, still top, and if this is what an off day looks like, you take it. Not with a smile, maybe, but you take it. We move forward, we clean up the details, and we keep marching on.